Hello everyone and welcome to a very nice game that was played almost 20 years ago on Internet Chess Club, the ICC, and it's a very nice game between Teimur Radjabov and Magnus Carlsen. Teimur back then was some 18 years old, Magnus was 15 years old, and well, as you know, always I like to say, the chess world was a very different environment back then. You had this great division that lasted all the way since 1993. When Kasparov broke away from FIDE, and in 2006, at the end of 2006, you had the unification match, but at this point in time, you had two world champions. Of course, extra points for those of you who know who the two world champions were, the FIDE one and the classical one. And I thought I'd show you a nice game featuring none other than the Evans Gambit. Now, the good people of the Internet Chess Club wanted me to invite you guys to check out everything they've added to their website. You have all sorts of new puzzles that you can solve. You have missions, you have achievements, you get nice, shiny rewards when you accomplish them. Then you lose them, then you gain them back, and well, there's a lot to enjoy. There's a lot to try out, and as usual, they would very much appreciate it if you would send them some feedback, what to add, what to remove, what to improve, either by contacting them directly or just posting under this video will also do, as they will be reading the comments. So. That being said, let's check it out. The one thing I would also like to mention is that this is from the old database on the Internet Chess Club. We don't know for sure whether it's Radjabov and Magnus playing, as there's no like a 100% confirmation, but it is like a known fact through forums back then, and some other prominent people in the chess world have discussed it online, that it is indeed a game between the two of them, because back then everyone had like 10 handles on a chess playing website, not just one. Ubiyca, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. He's obviously a killer at the chessboard, and I have no idea what Magnus's handle was, is supposed to be. If you have any suggestions, feel free to add them in the comment section. I would very much like to know what this is. So let's check it out and see once again. And I know I always said, but why Evans Gambit is the greatest opening there ever was and ever will be. So Teimur with white opens with pawn to e4. We have pawn to e5 and knight to f3. At the time this game was played, they were both ranked somewhere in the world top 15. I think Radjabov was a little bit higher ranked. Maybe Radjabov was world number 13, Magnus was world number 14. But obviously, two incredibly strong young players. We have knight to c6. Bishop to c4, bishop to c5, and Radjabov goes for the Evans Gambit. Plays pawn to b4. We have bishop captures on b4, pawn to c3, and bishop to a5. Now, I will also put a link in the description below at my Evans Gambit tutorial, where I cover all of the retreats by the bishop to a5, to c5, to d6, to e7, even to f8, as some people play that, so you have to be ready. We have pawn to d4 and e captures on d4. And here, Teimur goes for castles kingside. It is still, to this day, the sort of the best way to play the Evans Gambit, because for example, at my level, I prefer queen to b3 because I get a lot more interesting games, and not a lot of people know how to defend against queen to b3. I will show you, so you guys also are ready for it, but best would be after, let's say, queen e7, you castle kingside. If black knows about bishop to b6, which at certain levels, of course, black players do, and they prepare knight to a5, they want to attack the queen and the bishop, and now you will say, okay, I don't want you to take my light square bishop, how about you capture on d4? And if black still wants to insist, that's perfectly fine, but then you will have the huge center, so more often than not, black will capture on d4, you will play knight captures, and after bishop captures, you will go knight to c3, with some maybe knight d5 ideas. So black players usually stop there with knight to f6. Sometimes they even go pawn to c6, which is not great, as you need the pawn on c7 to cover the d6 square. Now bishop to e3, and black can pretty much just resign, because after d6 there's e5, and I think this is a position that I've had in bullet games very, very often. Bishop captures on e5, it will go rook a to e1, and now there's no good reply here. I mean, it's just It's just bad. So after knight c3, you're going to have to go knight to f6 to stop knight d5 from attacking the black queen. And here you're going to go rook to d1. Or even, sometimes you could go bishop to e3 first, you attack the queen, and after pawn to d6, you then go rook to d1, or even rook 8 to d1, you attack the bishop. And what black absolutely must do here is play bishop captures on c3. But sometimes players wielding the black pieces will be, I'm not giving you my dark square bishop, will retreat the bishop over to b6, and then you can win the game on the spot, as has been done many, many times with e5, and that's it, no more moves for black. Cannot capture with the pawn due to the bishop on a3. If queen captures, rook e1 just wins the queen. And once the knight moves, of course, you will just capture. And again, you've opened up the position. There's no defense against rook to e1. That's it. That's resigns. So queen b3, second most popular option. Depending on what level you are, you might get better games with queen to b3. But of course, these guys are on a very high level. They go castles king side. And now, interestingly, Magnus plays a move that had anyone else played it, it would be a terrible mistake. But Magnus playing it, obviously Radjabov had to think twice before doing anything rash, because here you have to go either knight to f6 or knight g to e7. That's how you play it. Or you continue with bishop to b6. But Magnus played queen to f6, and this is now very, very strange territory. Now, in the game, Radjabov played queen to b3. Again, it makes sense, but it's very hard to see how to stop e5. It wasn't played in the game, but it's hard to see what Magnus had in mind. Now, this is a 3-minute blitz game. We don't have the clock times, as I don't have access to that, but I imagine, they were playing fairly quickly. Maybe he expected something else, and then he played queen f6. Maybe he pre-moved it, who knows. But Radjabov does not go for e5. And it's interesting because after, let's say, queen f5 or queen to g6, queen f5 is a little bit better. So maybe Magnus prepared that, or queen to g6. After cd4, black's position isn't all that impressive. And it's very, very hard to develop. If you go knight to h6, then d5. Not a lot of good squares here. Knight to e7, bishop to e3, stops castles. It's maybe knight h to f5. So I mean, it's hard to say what Magnus had in mind here. But okay, Radjabov played right into it. He played queen to b3, and now Magnus continues knight g to e7. Again, obviously not playing against the Evans Gambit that much, didn't go for bishop to b6, or maybe he's just at a level where he knows that it is not necessary. So probably the latter. C captures on d4 by Radjabov, and castles kingside by Magnus. We have pawn to e5, queen to g6, and now what do you play here? In the game, bishop to d3 was played, but d5 is again very, very crushing, because once this knight moves and the only good square is pawn to b4, knight b4, you will go bishop to d2. And I know this is a 3-minute blitz game, so I'm only showing this for your viewing pleasure, just further explain what kind of a rich opening the Evans Gambit is. Look at this, pawn to b5. We're already entering some immortal game territory here. Bishop captures on b5, rook b8, nicely aligning with the bishop and with the queen. Queen to a4, and now knight to c2, attacking the rook on a1, and now d6. Look at this. The bishop on a5 is attacked, the knight is attacked, the rook on a1 is hanging. This is just a complete mess of a position where I don't think it's, you would struggle with this in a classical game, let alone in a 3-minute blitz game. So after queen to g6, he did not go for d5. He played bishop back to d3, attacked the black queen, and it makes sense. Putting pressure on h7, maybe knight g5 comes in the future, looks reasonable. Queen h5 by Magnus, and bishop to f4. We have bishop to b6, placing the bishop on a diagonal where the bishop belongs. Knight b to d2. We have knight to g6, going after the bishop on f4. Bishop to g3, and now knight captures on d4. Knight captures, we have bishop captures, and rook a to e1. Having another defender defending that e5 pawn, but look at this. Knight captures on e5. The queen also guards the e5 square, and there are many moves you could play here. For example, bishop to queen to d5, attacking the bishop with another attack on the knight will be very nice, but Temur went bishop to b1. He wants to get the queen on this diagonal to put more pressure here, and now you could really do some wonders with this position. In the game, pawn to d6 was played, which is not the best way to play, unfortunately for Magnus. If you play queen to h6, because the real threat, I'm not going to tell you what the real threat is because it might ruin the pause the video moment, but you have to play queen h6. You have to remaneuver the queen with tempo, attack the knight, and only after the white queen moves, and now it doesn't matter because the queen already guards the h7 pawn, you will go d6, and then everything is fine. However, Magnus, after bishop to b1, from a better position, played pawn to d6, and now there's a move that really presents a lot of problems for Magnus. Have at it, while I give you a couple of seconds. It's not just that it gives Radjabov a slight advantage, it's the only move that doesn't lose for Radjabov. That's what kind of a position this is. The only move is rook to e4. And yes, it comes with an attack on the bishop, so that's a problem, but also you're preparing rook to h4. That's the key idea here. And Magnus is just not in time to cover everything. He goes bishop to e6, which is by far the best move. He puts pressure on Timur's queen on b3, queen to a4, now putting more pressure on the bishop, and if the bishop moves, of course, the rook is coming to h4, and Magnus can still continue the game if he finds one move. So I know what you guys would play here because you guys are amazing. You would play pawn to c5, it is the best move, and now it's unclear how to pressure anything, because after rook to h4, you can just move the queen, and you don't really mind bishop captures on h7, because after king to h8, there are no useful discoveries for this bishop. Whatever you play, the black king just goes back to g8. And there are no important pieces on light squares that you can use to maybe, capture. So c5 would have been incredible here. However, Magnus played bishop to c3, and now Timur just goes in for the kill. Of course, the move is rook to h4, attacking the queen, and now the problem is, if Magnus goes queen to g5, then bishop captures on h7 is much, much different, because now after king to h8, there's knight e4, attacking the queen and the bishop, and there's no way to defend the bishop on c3, so you're just going to lose a piece here. You could maybe complicate a little bit. You throw in a b5, you attack the queen. If queen captures, then knight f3 check. You pick up the queen on b5. But if the white queen just moves wherever, queen d1, there's no defense. You will have to, move the queen and give up the bishop, and now you're just down material. So after rook to h4, Magnus said, all right, I'm not, playing that. That makes no sense. I'm going to give up the queen. The queen captures on h4. And okay, queen captures on h4, and now knight g6, attacking Magnus's queen. And now after the queen moves, queen g5 to defend the knight, rook 8 to e8. So Magnus really does not have a lot for his queen here. He has a rook for a queen. But let's see. Maybe he can do something. We have knight e4, putting pressure on the bishop, bishop to d4. Of course, Magnus does not want to trade. If anything, he wants to complicate as much as possible. But Radjabov now says, nope, pawn to h4, pawn to h5, and pawn to h6. How are you defending against this? We have pawn to f5 by Magnus. Pawn to h5 says, okay, I'm very happy trading pieces. I'm up so much material. We have knight to e5. And pawn to h6, just threatening checkmate. So knight to f7, attacking the queen and the guarding checkmate via the bishop on d4, and queen to d2, again putting pressure on that bishop. And here Magnus played bishop to e1, but also it was in this position on move 27 that Magnus Carlsen resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. There's just no move that you can play. For example, the knight is attacked. Timur could move the knight to g5, and now you can capture on e6. You can trade on f7. You can move the bishop. Even with tempo, you can capture the bishop on a1. So nothing really works here. Let's say captures. Okay, the bishop is guarding against checkmate, but you still, have to add more defenders. Maybe you could play something like rook e1, put pressure on the bishop f6, attacks the queen back to d2. And then something like g6, you've consolidated a little bit, but you're just down too much material. I mean, a rook for a queen doesn't look like something that you can play. And Magnus's position was very, very difficult. He was probably even lower on time. So yeah, makes sense to resign on bishop to a1. So yeah, very nice game by Ubiyca. If you have, like I said, if you have any idea on what BLBJF could be, share in the comment section. But I have no idea. And yeah, do check out everything that the good people at the Internet Chess Club have added to their website. Like I said, if you like it, tell them you like it. If you don't like it, tell them you don't like it. Tell it to them directly, or mention it in the comments of this video. They will appreciate it greatly, as they are trying to make it as best as possible. And also, yeah, first link in the description below will obviously take you there. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Even the great Magnus, I mean, he was 15 years old here, but even the great Magnus is not, capable of handling all of the intricacies of the Evans Gambit. As you've seen, there are many of them, and it's just the best opening. Play it, you will see 100% you will win some of the greatest games that you've ever played. So I hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Elaine Charbonneau, Seshadri Subramania, Nick Lynn, Paul Hinamund, and Ricardo Cardona Lopez for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.